5353 Curtis Boulevard. It is now 7 o'clock. Mr. Charnell, will you call the roll?
Mr. Rock? Here. Mr. Roskis?
Here.
Mrs. Zerman?
Here.
Mr. Jones?
Here.
Dr. Beal?
Here.
Dr. Quirrell?
Thank you. And if you all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first item on our agenda is community engagement. Superintendent question and answer.
I'm sorry, bear with me for 1 second. Although there were no specific comments to the board as a whole, we have and continue to receive a lot of questions from both staff and the community about a couple of items. So I'd like to quickly address that. Number one is vaccines. A lot of questions about the staff. And I'd like to start off by thanking Lori Klinowski in the back and Charles Murphy in the back. Wave, Charles, because they might get lost and not know it's you. They have headed this up, organized it, gone to all the meetings, and have done a spectacular job. So as things stand currently, now this is subject to us receiving the amount of vaccines that we need. We're optimistic. Is that fair to say? We're optimistic. But it will be on February 24th. We are a super center, if you will. It'll be held in our gymnasium at South High School. We'll vaccinate 1,500 people. That's the objective, 1,500 people. So obviously that includes all of our staff. Then staff from other schools are also, and entities are also assigned to us. That day, February 24th, will be an asynchronous learning day across the entire district because it's going to be a lot of teachers coming in, coming out, and obviously 1,500 people converging upon South High School. We need the parking lots empty. Certainly don't need students there. The second vaccination day will either be 3 or 5 weeks, depending on which vaccine we receive, and we still don't know which vaccine that we will receive. So as soon as we know that, Lori and Chuck will communicate that out to our staff. When we do have the second day, whatever that falls on, the second shot, will be 2 days of asynchronous learning. Because we know that a lot of people suffer from side effects that impact them the second day. And we already have a challenge staffing our buildings as it is, much less knock out another 100 teachers across the district because they reacted a little bit more adversely than maybe somebody else might. It's not supposed to last more than a second day, but so that day will be 2 days of asynchronous, unless of course it lands on a Friday, which would be outstanding. I don't know that teachers would say that would be outstanding, but it would be outstanding for us anyway from an educational perspective, and I think teachers would agree. So that's where we stand on vaccines. And we've had a lot of questions about the CDC. In some regards, depending on how you read and what you read, can sound like it's almost contradicting itself between a recommended 10-day quarantine and a 14-day quarantine. What they've said is a 10-day quarantine can be okay for the specific purpose of increased compliance and the burden it's putting on our community and businesses across the state. However, they conclude with, it is still our recommendation that a 14-day quarantine be followed. So as we have done consistently, we've tried to land on the side of caution. The Lake County Health Department also recommends a 14-day quarantine as well. So that is why there is some confusion about that. So hopefully that makes a little more sense for folks. So that is what I have related to, I would like to thank the families. We've had, the parents truly have been wonderful, flexible. People have just been rolling with the punches. We've had 3 buildings closed for different periods of time so far since we've returned. And to give you a sense of that, when we returned, we had 184 total cases to date. So that's been about 3 weeks ago. We now have 299. So while I know we're reading that the numbers in Lake County and across the country are going down, it doesn't necessarily feel like it here. So we have current active cases. These are not people quarantined. There's many more quarantined. But these are active cases of COVID positive. We have 20 students, 13 teachers, and 33 across the district. That captures a lot. And then in a few more days, that number will change. Well, it'll change tomorrow, but some will come off in return, and they will no longer be considered active cases once they return from the quarantine. So that's where we stand in terms of COVID at this point.
Mr. Chernow, has anyone filled out a form for public comment?
No.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 3 on the agenda, the superintendent's report.
Yeah, first we have a 2020-2021 IDEA Part B Special Education Funds. Thank you for doing such a great job with that, Eileen. Eileen heads our, as you all know, heads our special education and all of that encompasses, which is a preschool and a lot of things. It's a very almost overwhelming job. She does a great job with that, and all this report does, we're required by statute to present this each year, and it contains where those dollars are spent.
Vote to accept it, or-
No, it doesn't require a vote. It's just informational. And then a second, Gina Kevrin and Eileen have been working with 2 awesome teachers, which are seated before us. So, are actually just one, right? I'll turn it over to you guys, and thank you to Patrick McKinney, who's helped put a lot of this together for us. But we wanted to give you a sense of what does virtual learning really look like. So without further ado.
Thank you. Thank you to all the board members for letting us come tonight. You've been able to get regular updates from Mr. Thompson and in our board reports each week about virtual learning. But we wanted you to actually get a glimpse of what it might look like from a teacher's perspective and a student's perspective. And I do have to tell you that all of our teachers have done an amazing job. We were talking about that before the board meeting tonight, and how they have jumped in and really done their best to continue learning in this environment. Tonight, we have 5 teachers that actually helped us prepare a video for you tonight. 3 of them were unable to be with us tonight. That was Matt McCrafe and Aaron Kramer, who are a co-teach team from Edison Elementary, and then Stephanie Royko, who is an art teacher from Eastlake Middle, but you will see their videos as part of the presentation. I would like to introduce tonight the 2 teachers that are with us. We have Paula Clark. She is a math teacher at North High School. And we have Janine Zampini, who is a math teacher over at the School of Innovation.
Janine, you colored your hair.
I did.
All right. That is totally unfair.
Wait till you hear why she colored her hair. Why don't you share why you colored your hair?
When we first went online, in order to keep things fun, we were having theme days. So the one day was dress as your favorite actor or actress. So I thought it would be fun to be Molly Ringwald, pretty in pink.
They didn't know Molly Ringwald, though.
Although a lot of them do. They love Breakfast Club. They think it's awesome. Well, the red did not come out yet. Eventually.
So she is stuck with that for a while, but it looks great. So we are going to go ahead, and thanks again to Patrick for helping us splice all of their videos together. We're going to share the video presentation with you, and then Janine and Paula will also share just a couple of comments about their section and be available to answer questions. Thank you, Pat. So I think you can see since we started using Schoology, our learning management system, it works for students as young as kindergarten and first grade all the way up through high school. And many of them have said that even if we go back to all brick and mortar, that they would still use a lot of the online teaching tools. And as you heard Matt say, we can probably save some paper too by doing a lot of this online. Let me just give Janine and Paula just a couple of minutes just to answer questions for you, and they might want to share anything else that they shared in their video. And then Eileen will wrap it up for us. Paula, would you like to talk about your authentic experiences for a moment?
So mine was a little different. I was asked just to talk about some of the lessons I created rather than go through the pieces of Schoology that the other teachers use, we all use. And what I really found, and I based this year mostly on, whether we're brick and mortar or remote learners, certainly creating that hook and making the learning meaningful is extremely important. And when I surveyed the kids after the spring, that was the one thing they missed a lot because it was, a totally new experience for them. And they really wanted that connection and that hook. The students described themselves, even the highly motivated students, as having this remote experience be very difficult for them. They didn't ask for it, right? So even when we went remote in the fall again, they didn't ask for that, and they knew they wanted to be in person. So I try to create those learning experiences to make it feel like they're right there on those virtual field trips and in those experiences. And really, in the words of the kids, that's what they like. They like when there's a hook, they like when there's a connection, and it makes it more meaningful for them.
I'll take a totally different spin. One of the things that I found a lot with Schoology is the ability to integrate it with so many different opportunities online, digitally. For instance, a lot of the math we do is done through Kami, as well as the social studies I use a lot through Kami. And it allows students to annotate directly onto any PDF document. And the nice thing I'm finding with it is it has full equation editor built right in. So it's teaching the students how to use all of these equation editing tools that they would see on any of the high stakes tests. So they're using these daily without even realizing they're learning all these extra ways to perform. It's definitely been saving on cost of paper, I think. If you look at any math teacher and say, okay, you don't have a math book, they'd be running off things nonstop, but because everything's digitally, I think I've made 5 copies the whole year. For a year, that's really good. And those are things that I didn't even need to, but sometimes it is nice just to write. So definitely having that opportunity to learn these equation editing software tools before the tests has become definitely invaluable.
Well, we just felt like we've talked to you for a year now about virtual learning, so we thought maybe we could give you a glimpse of what it really looks like for our kids. And I, for one, am just so proud of our teachers. I think, we got this notice on a dime, and on a Thursday, and they were virtual by Monday. So, and they've grown and learned and evolved, and we just thought we wanted to brag a little bit and share with you what our teachers are doing. This is a sample, but we've got lots of teachers doing lots of really good things. So thank you guys for coming. Do anybody have any questions that you want?
Go ahead.
I had one with the Christmas lighted house. Did they calculate the electricity, the mom and dad, of putting all those lights on the house, kind of like Clark Griswold, who kind of blows up his neighborhood? Because I think that would be a real practical thing if the kids can compute in math and real world stuff. The mathematical, you could tie in all of it. Like they could write about it, they could figure out how much stuff they've got plugged in, they could study energy, and that could be real nice, because maybe they've learned how to turn off something or unplug something. I don't know which, or all of the above.
Yeah, they actually did. I gave them the backdrop of North High, so that was kind of what they had to design something for. And other than that, they had, creative license to design anything they wanted. And they did. They researched. They had to tell me where they were going to shop, why, so they had to do price comparisons. Then they had to compare like LED lights against the incandescent lights, and they saw the cost savings right there, even though up front they cost, a bit more to buy. But they did. They ran through like samples of how many, if you burned it for a day, if you burned it overnight, if you burned it for an entire season, and they watched that cost. So yeah, and the one gentleman in the video, Josh, that was saying it was more fun, he was speaking about that experience. And, they didn't even realize they were doing that, one of the girls just said she loved it because it was shopping, and she loves to shop. They got to go pick out any lights they wanted and shop, so it made it truly authentic.
I just wonder if my Newark high schooler was in that because he likes to shop and not turn anything off, so he participated in that one.
How much do you think this experience of being virtual will change how teachers teach in the future?
I think significantly. I really do think that it's taught us how to become way more organized and to have alternate ways to approach something and to quickly shift on a dime. Because we might have, a full classroom today and tomorrow half of it's quarantine. So you have to quickly make those in-game decisions, which is something a teacher has to get really good at regardless. So it's really taught us to be flexible, to constantly evaluate what we're doing, what we're using, and how to best use it.
And I think it taught me, I've been teaching for 30 years, I think it taught me to be a learner. So, it put me right back into that, my first year experience, because I was not familiar with any of this. And I gave a presentation at North High, and we talked about the traditional picture of the industrial classroom and how really as a staff we flipped that upside down. That took 100 years to develop, and in 100 days we flipped it upside down. And it was because we all embraced the learning piece to it. What did we have to learn? And I think, if nothing else, it taught me to just that continual process of learning, that every day is different, and I just have to remind myself of that.
I think this video would be good to kind of put on the website. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's just me, but I'm only one.
I do too. To think that 10 months ago we were told, you're going to be out for 2 or 3 weeks.
Right.
And it's still going on now. And also just the consistency and routine that you brought to the kids who are living through anything but consistent and routine. I know that from what I've heard, just how much the kids appreciate just seeing you guys every day and having that ability to interact. So I want to thank you all for all the work you do.
When you think a year ago today, we didn't even know this was going to happen.
Right.
It's February, so March came, and look at where they've come that far. I think it's amazing.
It is. Thank you so much I know that took a lot of time and took time out of your evening away from your families to be here. So thank you very much for doing that. And we are Dr. Clark, are we not?
We are, yes.
Congratulations on that as well. Thank you very much, and ladies, thank you guys for organizing it and getting it all together. And I just think it's important for not only our school board but the community to have a really greater sense of what truly was accomplished. Is nothing short of amazing. What public education, when people are down on public education, just take a look at what it's done. In what, a 10-month time period? So, thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to stay, but you can go. I would recommend the
It's
second
following
option.
that, sir.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is.
Thank you for everything. You are so.
January 6th board meeting. Do I hear a motion? Yes. Thank you, Mr. Merhart. Do I hear a second? Mr. President, Mr. Jones?
I'd like to second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Chow?
Mr. Bernhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zimmerman?
Abstain.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes. Next
Passes
is,
4-0.
thank you. Next, approval of the minutes of the board meeting on January 11th. Do I hear a motion?
Mr. President, I will make a motion to approve the minutes of January 11th.
Thank you, Mr. Roskis. Is there a second?
Mr. President,
Mrs. Zimmerman?
I will approve the motion.
Thank
I will
you.
second the motion.
Thank you, Mrs. Zimmerman. Do I hear any discussion? No? Mr. Chanel?
Mr. Bernhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Next, I'm looking for a motion for the approval of the minutes of January 19th. Do I hear a motion? Yes, Mr. Moore.
Motion to approve the minutes of January 9th.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Do I hear a second?
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones?
I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. Do I hear any discussion? Mr. Chanel?
Mr. Bernhardt? Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zimmerman?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
And finally, looking for, next, the treasurer's report. Mr. Chanel?
Number 5A is the financial report for the month ending January 31st, 2021. It's the month that we were dreading since I got here. We ended the month with about $2 million general fund in the bank. So we made it. Collections have been coming in slowly from the county. We asked for and got a $2 million advance that came last week. I'm sure you all got your tax bills that came kind of late. They're due in the middle of the month, but still think we'll be fine. We'll ask for additional advances if we need to, unless they start trickling in by themselves. 5B is amended appropriations. This is primarily, if you look at the changes attachment, due to a lot of our state and federal funds. So in all total, our special revenue class changed by $480,000. So now that's we have changes to the special education federal funds. We have changes to school improvement fund. So we have a couple of changes just in that, but there was no change to the general fund. 5C, this is an investment agreement with Red Tree. This is just to keep our options open. In the current climate of low interest rates, it might not be advantageous at the time. However, I can have conversations with Red Tree to see if there's something out there that would make sense. With different liquidity, it could be 3 months, 6 months, 2 years, see what's out there on the market.
He's not going to say himself, but through some of the changes he's made, he's saved the district a couple $100,000 so far, and in our tight budget, that's really important. So
This is I just want to make sure I understand. This is just allowing us to do it. It's not. Are you saying, are we actually going to be investors? It's just giving us the option if there are.
This is just to enter into an agreement with them, so that way, if I'm having these conversations with them, we can just go and do it instead of
Then coming
coming
back
back,
and
and
waiting. Sure.
then by then, the rate might not be there anymore.
Understood.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve item 5C, Red Tree Investment Agreement? Yes, Mr. Moore.
Motion to approve item 5C.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Mr. President, I'd like to second that.
Thank you, Mr. Chanel. Is there any discussion or questions for Mr. Chanel? No? Mr. Chanel?
Mr. Merhart?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zering?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Letter 5D, that ties into the Red Tree. They have a separate bank account in U.S. Bank, so we would transfer money into that bank account, and then they would invest it within that account. So this just ties into that. We won't put money into it unless, the opportunity arises and it makes sense for the district. 5E, we have 2 then and now certificates, one for Project Lead the Way, and then another one for the Lake County YMCA. That is for signage and janitorial supplies for shared use. 5F, this is the establishment of a new account. This is the G.F. Martin Educational Foundation, and also in the 5G, you'll also see that is for their budget purpose and goals, so those tie together. 5H, this is who the Drama Productions would like to use as their ticket taking service. It is a digital theater, also known as Show Ticks for Use. This is the terms of use for that company. This is a service number 5I. This is a service agreement, TTG LLC. This is computer support for NCI. This would be, or do you want to talk about TTG at all?
Pardon me?
TTG, can you explain a little bit about what that is, please?
We utilize consulting services for IT assistance, particularly with our learning management system. And that is how we save students' grade books, save students' records electronically, and upkeep all their financial aid information.
Thank you. 5J, return of advances. We made a couple advances in August or September, and this is just bringing them back because we were doing it monthly, and we stopped doing it monthly, but we never brought those ones back. So those are just to return those amounts that we sent. 5K transfer funds. This is for termination benefits. This would be for severance payments. 5L transfer funds. This is one of our larger transfers. This is all for debt payments. So this is where a lot of our permanent improvement levy goes. So with $1.6 million for March 1st debt payments. 5M, transfer funds to close out accounts. So there were some accounts from prior fiscal years that we are closing out rolling into this current year. 5N, grant application acceptance. For higher ed, we received money for direct student aid and institutional aid, and then we also received an Ohio School Climate Professional Development Grant.
Nick, is it safe to say that while we are grateful that we've received this CARES Act money, it does not make up for the reductions in state funding to date?
Correct.
So I think there are a lot of folks out there think we got all this CARES Act money, or when you're remote, you must be saving millions of dollars. And the fact of the matter is our expenses stay consistent whether we're remote or not. And so those costs don't come down, or come down very, very, very little. And the CARES Act money, while again we're grateful for it, doesn't quite offset all the reductions in state funding. So I get that a lot. I see that a lot out there. So.
And it's also for certain purposes, which is related to the coronavirus relief. So
Yeah. So it's
it does have
specific
certain
with the
purposes
strings.
that you can use it for.
Right.
5O, this is a revised athletic event workers pay schedule. This was to just state about security and police and the events they could work, and they were missed on the first one. 5P, gifts and donations. Number one is a $300 Visa gift card from Onyx Power and Gas Consulting. 2 is a $1,055.48 e-gift card to Ellison Elementary from Office Depot.
Item A for your consideration is to accept the funds from the OSBA Legal Assistance Fund to assist us in moving forward as it relates to our situation with OPSI, to cover those costs moving forward, to bring that to completion.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 6A of the OSBA Legal Assistance Fund?
Mr. President,
Yes.
I make the motion to approve item 6A, the OSBA Legal Assistance Fund.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
I would say.
Is there any discussion? No? Mr. Chernow?
Mr. Murhart?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item B for your consideration is a resolution authorizing employment of certain individuals granting temporary substitute license in accordance with House Bill 409. I think everyone is aware that finding certain substitutes is extremely challenging. What this law does, House Bill 409, it reduces or loosens the requirements that someone has to have, i.e. the major one is a college degree. You can have less than that and be a substitute teacher. They still have to be background checked and there still are requirements, but the main hurdle has been withdrawn, but that is only subject through the rest of this school year. And I think it's solely, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Mr. Murphy, I think it's so little is known that we're not seeing this influx of people that want to rush and sub.
That's correct.
So shocking to hear that, I know. So perhaps it'll help us as we move forward, but it does sunset at the end of the school year.
Do I hear a motion to accept item 6B, resolution authorizing employment of certain individuals granted temporary substitute licensure in accordance with House Bill 409? Mr. Ross?
Mr. President, I will make a motion to approve item 6B, resolution authorizing employment of certain individuals granted temporary substitute licensure.
Thank you. Do I hear a second? Mr. Rizzo?
Mr. President, I second that motion.
Any discussion? Mr. Childs?
Mr. Murhart?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item C for your consideration is a resolution granting the superintendent the authority to prohibit retention of certain students under the third grade reading guarantee. And again, this is part of House Bill 409. It just simply waives the third grade reading guarantee that would normally be an automatic holdback if they didn't pass. And obviously because of COVID, that's being waived.
Do I hear a motion to approve item 6C, resolution granting the superintendent authority to prohibit retention of certain students under the third grade reading guarantee in accordance with House Bill 409?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I make the motion to approve item 6C, resolution granting the superintendent authority to prohibit retention of certain students under the third grade reading guarantee in accordance with House Bill 409.
Thank you, Mr. Do I hear a second? Mr. Brenner?
Second the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Brenner. Is there any discussion? Mr. Childs?
Mr. Murhart?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item D for your consideration, and you're going to see a second one, but not a third one. So it'll make sense to you in just a moment. But item D for your consideration is a school resource officer memorandum of agreement with the Willoughby Police Department. Again, thank you, Mr. Murphy. I think you lost a couple of hairs from this process, maybe. It was challenging, to say the least. The biggest impediment, well, let me back up. We are now required to do these MOUs. They're required to have, which we haven't historically done this. So it was just really working through with the chiefs about how it would all work. So it was actually a positive experience. But there is a piece of law, a new law, that says resource officers must have 40 hours of training. And each department handled it differently in terms of, for example, Willoughby assigned a police officer to South and Willoughby Middle, who are the same person every day, where other departments assign it like they might an extra duty working security at Walmart, where they can pick it up if they choose to. So that caused an influx of lots of different officers in the building, which has its advantages and disadvantages, but it created a problem with the 40-hour work week. So Mr. Murphy worked diligently with the police departments to get these ironed out, but as you can see, the first one for your consideration, item B, is Willoughby.
And do I hear a motion to approve item 6D, school resource officer memorandum of agreement with the Willoughby Police Department? Yes, Mr. President.
Mr. President, I motion to approve item 6D, school resource officer memorandum of agreement with the police department.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Do I hear a second? Mr. Murray?
I will second.
Thank you. Do I hear discussion? No? Mr. Canal?
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis? Yes. Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you. Mr. President, item E for your consideration is the same memorandum of agreement, and this is with the East Lake Police Department.
So same verbiage?
Same verbiage, yeah.
Do I hear a motion to approve 6E, school resource officer memorandum of agreement with the East Lake Police Department?
Mr. President,
Mr.
I'll make a
Raskin.
motion to approve item 6E, school resource officer memorandum of agreement with the East Lake Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. Ross. Do I hear a second?
Mr. President, I will second the motion.
Thank you. Do I hear discussion? No, Mr. Canal?
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal? Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. What you don't see is the third one, which would be Willowick, which we are still in the process of working through that. It's just a matter of making sure their officers can meet that 40-hour requirement, because it creates a liability for the school district and for the police department, quite frankly, if we continue that process without following the requirements of statute. So Mr. Murphy is still working on that, correct?
That is correct.
All right, and hopefully we'll have it for next board meeting. But if for some reason we can't work that out, we'll have to look at a secondary source for resource officers. Not what we want to do, but there are options like county sheriff. There are some other options, but hopefully that won't be the case. Item F for your consideration is a memorandum of agreement with the Willoughby East Lake Classified Professionals, or WESEP, recognizing that being quarantined and some people have been quarantined multiple times. And now without the federal relief in place, employees are forced to use sick leave. So what this memorandum does is that it will allow a person, if quarantined, to be able to get a one-day donation from another employee, and that also sunsets.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion to approve item 6F, memorandum of agreement with the Willoughby East Lake Classified Professionals? Mr. Murray?
I'll make a motion to approve item F.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Mr. President, I'd like to second that motion.
Thank you. Do I hear any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question, just kind of came to me honestly. So an employee, if they're quarantined for COVID, can get a donation of a sick day from somebody, or a paid day from somebody else.
That's correct.
So could they get donations from, say, 10 people?
Correct.
10 employees or 12 employees?
Yeah, but the
Okay.
employee can only donate one day.
Yeah, like they
Correct.
could collect 10 people that they know or 12 people that they know.
Right.
Each person can only donate one day
That's correct.
to, say, Brian, okay,
Correct.
okay,
And only if the need is because of a quarantine.
okay.
Any other discussion? Mr. Canal?
Mr. Murphy?
Yes.
Mr. Roskis?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes,
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Thank you, Mr. President. Item G for your consideration is a 2021-22 College Credit Plus MOU, and it is with, as you can see, a list of colleges below, and it just certainly opens up the opportunity, a lot of opportunity for our students to ultimately earn an associate's degree if they're diligent while they're still in high school. I'm going from G to H. Yes, that is alphabetical order, is it not? Item H for your consideration is the personnel agenda. Though everyone that appears on this personnel agenda must receive satisfactory records from the Bureau of Criminal Identification and Investigation, the Ohio Department of Education, the Federal Bureau of Education before they become permanent employees of both East Lake City Schools.
And next item is item 7, meeting notification. Our next regular meeting of the BOE City Schools Board of Education is scheduled for March 8th, 2021 at 7 p.m. Here at the BOE Board of Education. Item 8 is the adoption of the consent calendar. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent calendar? Ms. Meyer.
Make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Mr. Lambert. Is there a second? Mr. Russell?
I will second the motion.
Thank you. Is there discussion? Your turn, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bernhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
Passes 5-0.
Okay, item 9 is our closing. Is there anyone from the press here? I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mrs. Zerr?
I make the motion 9B to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you. Do you hear a second?
Mr. President,
Mr. Jones?
I second that motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Bernhardt?
Yes.
Mr. Russell?
Yes.
Mrs. Zern?
Yes.
Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Dr. Beal?
Yes.
We're adjourned at 8:04 p.m.
Thank you.
Had a lot of questions about prom and graduation, so I just wanted to run through a couple of questions that were posed and let you all know and the community know where we stand on prom right now. Currently, it is under discussion to hold a prom. The question was asked, has the venue been changed? And we are exploring changing the venue for North High School. And the reason is LaMafa holds a lot more people, so it makes it more plausible to host a prom at LaMafa versus in Eastlake where they would, at the Croatian Hall where they would traditionally hold that prom. The problem is, well, I'll explain what our challenges are in just a moment. They were asked if they can bring a date to prom. And again, the challenge is, that's a difficult question to answer because it just depends on whether the governor's orders get lifted or they don't get lifted. If they do not get lifted, the answer is probably no. And so that makes you wonder what type of prom that looks like. And when will this be communicated and how will this be communicated? Well, our buildings will communicate it out to the community. We'll also do a video, but it really the timing is going to be dependent upon what happens with coronavirus and what happens with the governor's orders. So just to give you an idea of what the challenge is, no socializing or activities and this is the governor's orders. No socializing or activities in open congregate areas and no dancing. Guests must be seated at all times. If serving food and beverages, guests must be served at their seats. Masks must be worn at all times unless actively consuming food or beverages. And this is really the most difficult one of all, I think. No more than 10 people seated at a table, and those individuals must be from the same household.
So everybody has to have an own date.
So essentially, it's like you would have to space 300 kids out, we'd have to bring in desks, basically, was what it would look like.
And someone would have to come and serve.
and someone would have to come and serve each one of them individually.
And they can't get up and can't.
And they can't get up and they can't dance. So that sounds like the beginnings of the Footloose movie, doesn't it? I mean, that's going way back. I just dated myself. But so when people want to know the answer to prom, that's what we're up against at this point. And it's also important to note that, you know, the venues are enforcing these rules. It's not like we can just ignore the rules and even if you wanted to do that, which I would not do or recommend, you couldn't do it anyway because the venue wouldn't do it. And then in terms of graduation, we are also having our meetings and working through that. One idea was to graduate in an open air stadium, but the problem is you can only be at 15% capacity in the stadium to include the students on the field. So that leaves you with less than one person, one adult in the stands per student. So that's not it's not, at least as the orders currently stand. So that is not a viable answer at this point. All the venues downtown, of course, are still closed. And you know, they're much larger, but again, we have the problem of at capacity levels, you know, we have trouble appeasing parents to some degree with only allowing 6 tickets. So if we do the virtual graduation, which is what we're leaning towards at this point, then we can have a whole lot more than one parent attend the graduation. So we'll do a better job. I thought last year went fairly well, all things considered, being under the gun in such short notice, but we can make a much better video presentation of it this year, knowing in advance. So that's what we are leaning towards. I would like to graduate traditionally, but I think we have to make plans right now as if that is not possible. So that's where we're at with graduation and prom, 2 issues that I know bring a lot of emotion for a lot of people.
And again, the parents and the students will find out from the building.
Yes, it'll be pushed out from the buildings. We had a meeting last week. We have a follow-up meeting this week, and then more information will be distributed to the parents so they know and kids can start to get a sense of how it would work. But under these governor's orders, I can't. It's hard to envision a prom. So, thank you.